Well, hi there. Welcome to another episode of Restoring the Badlands. This is actually episode 1.5. I asked a question last time, and I was seeing what people thought about using different techniques to restore an old layout like this Badlands one that we have here. So I just wanted I got a few comments, and I wanted to address those folks. Thank you very much for writing that. And I want to go through each one, and then I'm going to go ahead and let you know my philosophy on getting this all restored. So I'll just dive right in for the moment. As you can see behind me, this is all the original stuff that was here. The only thing that's not on here right now is the billboard whistle, the original one. And that'll show up later in one of my videos. But you can see where it was integral to the construction of this layout. In fact, the wires that came off of the whistle are still back in the tunnel. When they took the whistle out, there was no way to disconnect it. So it's just the wires, the green and yellow, that came off the whistle, and they go down through the board and they connect with the main bus underneath. And so what I have done in the meantime, I have some things that I've done, and but for now, let me just go ahead and read off some of the comments that I received. So I'll just read them off in order, and I'll try and address them as whatever my philosophy is. And you can chime in on this video if you agree, disagree, whatever. But this is going to be my methodology of restoring this layout. So our first one comes from Ronald Devine 9587. So I had asked if I should use traditional or maybe newer techniques. So Ronald's saying, in my opinion, absolutely not. Keep it original. You will destroy the value if you use modern materials. And I see that perfectly. Grew up in a family that restores old automobiles and old cars, and it's definitely not something that I want to change from the way it is. I want it to look like the original one, but as you can see, somebody tore it up at some point, and it's not any fault of their own. They're trying to build a different layout. They were trying to build an HON3 layout on this using these mountains that we have here, and they had just pulled the existing hills and mountains up and off. What's nice about this, though, and the originality of this, is each of the blank plywood areas, they have the pencil marks that the original display designers made, or they put them on there, and then they put in the plywood cutouts and with an L bracket, and they nailed them right down to the board. And then the whole thing was covered up with plaster. Now, I think in an eventual restoration, that would be the best way to redo this. Actually put the plywood, nail it back to the board, find something that looks like asbestos plaster that they used on this, which is a safety issue I'll bring up here in a little bit. But for the time being, I don't know what that is. So to actually dive in and just start putting wire screen mountains on here and slapping plaster on it, it wouldn't be very effective because I don't know if it will look right or not. So what I've decided on that, I'm going to go ahead and kind of do some more experimentation, and that's why I have the removable mountains that you are going to see here. Everything on the board is removable. I want this so that I can take it to train shows. It's easily transportable, and you'll get the image of what it looked like. You're not going to get any Woodland Scenics, plaster castings or any of that stuff. It's going to look just like something they would have done in 1959. So that's where I'm coming from there. So thanks, Ronald, and you are not alone in that. You're the only person that commented on that on here, but I've gotten that response from a lot of different folks. And I know there's some really good friends of mine out there that are restoring these layouts, and um, they are doing superb jobs on making it exactly how the factory designers made theirs. So I see the value in that. So next comment. So we've got my grandpa's train. I like that. Um, he says, I think keeping it as close to original is best. I've seen others restore old display layouts and just destroy them. And I can I can see that as well. So, and that brought back to the first thing I was talking about in that, you know, if I just started slapping plaster on here and not knowing exactly what a good replacement for asbestos plaster was, without actually doing the research and matching colors and finding out how they built this thing, it wouldn't do it justice, and it could really ruin it. And I've been so scared of that for this whole time. So, in in uh, in answering his question, my grandpa's train, that I'm probably going to leave these mountains just like they are. They have cracks all in them. I'm going to make them stable. I may fill them and do a little repainting, but I think it's important for people to see, you know, the original depot unpainted without any modification with the wear on it, the mountains in the back, the ground cover that's plaster over the top of the layout board. And so I think that portion is going to be the same. What I'm going to do in some subsequent videos is I have my Celotex method that you can kind of see it back there along the mountain. And not only does that help with a sound deadening effect, because it's very loud if you don't have any of that on there, the track was originally nailed through cardboard roadbed. And so it's nailed back in the exact places where they had it nailed. And when the train's running on it without any sound deadening on the top, it is very loud and echoey. If you've ever run a train on top of a piece of plywood on one of these displays like this, or just any piece of plywood, it can be very loud. And since they didn't use the rubber roadbed, which is a good sound deadener, they used the cardboard. And it helps a little, but it's not as good as the previous stuff they had before 1959. So my goal is to keep it as original looking as possible and make the plaster look just like the pictures that I found and the same methodology, but safer without using the asbestos. So I hope that makes some sense. And I'll get into that in the subsequent videos in this development as well. My third question is from CB Train Nut. I like that name too. He says, I'm not going to get in the discussion of original or modern. Oh, heck, yes, I am. So do what works best. I'm a foam guy with plaster cloth. And that's something that I brought up was one of the questions. And I appreciate that as well. And I just want to let folks know I am going to try that. So I do have a mountain back here. This mountain, you probably saw it on the last video, the first one, part one. And it was wire screen over foam. So this is what it came out like with some stuff. You'll see it in a subsequent video. And then also I've got other videos where I used foam hills and mountains for the middle part. I'm not going to reveal that now, but I used plaster cloth and plaster over the top of that. And so, you know, and as long as I do it, it looks original. You know, it looks like the pictures and looks like something Gilbert would have made. and the train runs in a proper way and it looks good, I'm going to go ahead and go with that with these subsequent videos. But what's nice about that and the removable mountains, I can, if I find something that works, and what I've found in these videos I'm making, a lot of things don't work. And it's not because it's not a good product, but it's because um, it's it just is too hard of a technique, and it doesn't look like the original uh, thing that they did. So I'm doing a lot of trial and error on this restoration. So as we go through, I find things that really work well. I find things that don't work as well, or I find good stuff that may be more applicable to a newer layout. So keep following, and I'll have some more videos with that on the way. So our next one is Willamette Valley AF trains, Willamette Valley American Flyer trains. He's got some great videos on here. I really like watching his videos. He's got some awesome display layouts. And I think he's even working on a complete railroad system. Thank you. That's right, cool. That's what I'm hoping for. I issued that complete railroad system challenge, earlier on and in my previous videos. And so I'm really happy to see that. But continuing, he says, my brother used a technique of shaped styrofoam covered with quilt batting, filler glued over it with white glue, then painted over with flat latex paints. It gives a very nice late 50s, early 60s look. And I want to try that. That could be something that I haven't found yet that could really work and could really match. And if it doesn't match on this later 50s style display, that might be perfect for an earlier display layout restoration, as some of them were a little bit different. These later ones, they use screen over the top of plywood forms. And in the old ones, they used solid forms with the big 1/4-inch metal wire mesh, almost like the stuff you'd put in a concrete backing or something. So I'm looking forward to that. So I'm going to say that again. So shaped styrofoam covered with quilt batting. I assume that's the white puffy stuff that you would put into a quilt with, and then glue over it with white glue, kind of give it a hardened shape, and then paint over it with flat latex. Either probably your browns or whites or however you're going to do it. In this case, I went with white, but I could have gone with gray so it looked like the original. In fact, I'll do a base layer of gray just so it looks like the original asbestos. So, yeah. So thank you very much for showing me that. That's really cool. And I look forward to seeing more of your videos. So, next one is from Mark Wick. I love his channel as well. He's constantly building and rebuilding, and he has some great videos out there if you get a chance to look at those. So he says, when I have a usable Gilbert piece to work with, I keep it as original as possible. When I have to recreate something, I use the best method and materials. Best methods and materials I know how to use. AC's employees used the best they had at that, made financial sense. Let me redo that. I know how to, let me try this again. AC's employees used the best they had that made financial sense. That, I believe, that practice would be in place today if the company still existed. And that is something to think about on the restoration of these old layouts. What materials did AC, the Gilbert company, use? What did those display guys, what were they thinking? Asbestos plaster was probably a cheap alternate. You could get big bags of it and you could mix it up and you could put it all over these things. Even though we know today that asbestos is bad for your lungs. And but other things as well, they would reuse parts. If you look over here, like on the back mountain, you'll see yellow and green paint. You can see where they took the wood and they reused it from other displays. And the other important thing to think about too is they were knocking these things out. So they sent out a display guide, and you could buy this one for whatever the price was on it, $159, and you could get this display layout. And they were custom made to order. They had salesmen that would go out, so it wasn't a standard thing that they might have had a few on the shelf, but pretty much this was a custom order display. So you'd call up the Gilbert Company or write them a letter back then, and you would say, I want a Badlands layout. And they would send the order down to the display department and they would start creating one. And it could be totally different. So every one of these is a custom job, and it was designed to be built quickly and so they could get it out to the customer. So when you're thinking about this, you'll see a lot of videos on YouTube, and there's guys that take years and years to develop a scenic layout. They knocked this out fast. This might have been a week, maybe, and they were sending it to the shipping department, and it was getting crated up, and it went on a train or a truck or whatever it was, probably a train back then, and it got shipped out to wherever it was going. So this was a business. They were doing it as efficiently as they could, as quickly as they could, to make it look as good as they could. And I'm an American Flyer guy, so I'm biased, but I think they did a darn good job with all of their display layouts. So at this point, if you're not familiar with American Flyer display layouts, I'm going to plug a friend of mine, Dale Smith's website. So it's American Flyer Displays and History, www.americanflyerdisplays.org. And you can see just about the history of every display layout that they made, and also other really cool American Flyer history of the entire factory. So thank you, Dale, for putting all that together. He's done a tremendous amount of work, and if you get a chance, check that out. So Mark, I appreciate you commenting, and I look forward to seeing more of your videos, and I hope people watching this will check your site out as well. So I got one last comment, and I'm going to make a comment on this one. It doesn't really have anything to do with the display layouts, but it's relevant to what I believe in American, or just running trains. And I believe that you should have a good time. You should enjoy yourself. So Benjamin Scribner 7737, thank you for writing in. I did write you back. I replied to your comment, but I'm going to go ahead and read this. And I really appreciate this, and I hope you appreciate my reply as well. So let me read it off here. So he says, I have an S-scale locomotive and 6 question mark cars, including the lighted caboose. Haven't got a clue what I'll do with them. I have all post-war Lionel stuff. And I basically said, well, get some track and run it. Yeah. Fire that thing up. Get an oval of track and just put it around. Practice making these layouts. Part of this, he could make a little oval of track and then scenic it, and it would be practice for his Lionel layout, whatever that may be. The great layout that we all want in our hearts, the big one. But to get there, you have to practice. I'm finding that out with this one. You try different things and you find out what works right. And once you get that down, you tear, like this one. I'm not going to tear this one down, but if you built an oval and you put scenery on it, it's just do it and practice. Practice, practice, practice. That's what they always used to tell us in band, practice, practice, practice. And you'll be rewarded for that, because when you do get that dream layout and you put that together, you'll have the techniques down, how to make plaster scenery, how to make trees, how to wire, all that. You'll have that, a good foundation. So the other thing I told him was, well, if you're a Lionel guy, you can always turn the American Flyer cars into Lionel flat car loads, or make yourself a scrapyard and put them in there. And for us American Flyer folks, that would be sacrilegious. But for a Lionel guy, it would be awesome. And he could rib his American Flyer buddies and give them a hard time. And it's all in fun. So just remember that. Run those trains. Give them to a niece or a nephew. Let them run them. Don't let them run your expensive Lionel, but let them run the American Flyer. And so they get that sense of fun that we all have when we're running these trains. So that's all I have from the initial one. So what I'm going to do first, the next video, part 2, is going to be about asbestos plaster and what we can do to mitigate it and how I've chosen to mitigate any problems with this. And so that video will come out shortly after this one. And I hope you take a look, and just hope you enjoy the videos as they come out. I'm hoping to do one a week, and you'll see my experimentation with the scenery, and hopefully it's something you can use if you restore a display, or if you just build your own complete railroad system, right? So get out there, have fun with your American Flyer, and even if you're a Lionel guy, and have a great Christmas. This is Christmas time, so just have a great Christmas with those trains. So thank you very much. I'll leave you with a last look of the layout, and we'll see where I go with it. So here we have one of the original mountains that was on the layout. They basically just stacked plaster on top of it. Some other cool stuff. Oh, wagon tracks. They used a wagon, and then it would split around the hill that's here behind the depot. Well, we give you a quick show, and it goes all the way around back over to where the transformer is. Oh, and I'm giving you a sneak peek. There's what the mountains look like. But we'll see those in a different video. Here's the depot. It's made with either plywood or just regular wood. And the windows are from the Suburban Depot, the stick-on chrome style ones. And if you look on some of the other layouts they did in this style with the frontiersman thing, they are the same windows. There's one with a livery stable and a saloon and a hardware store. So the thing I was telling you about the pencil marks, so there you have it. So this is where they drew. This is where the mountains go. There's a main straight line where they were going to, where the support beam goes underneath that they could nail to. And there's staples. You will see the staples along the edge. See if I can find one. There's one, there's one, there's one. And so that was the edge of the screen that they used for the mountain. So I've done my best to try and make my mountain look like this other mountain back here. And I might have a little bit more work to do, but it gives the good general impression. So another thing that you'll notice, if you look over here, I'm going to go over here, and if you look at the depot, you will look down here and you will see staples in the green part. And what that is, there was a piece of lichen, like a bush, right there. They would staple the lichen to the board. More of it right here. See those? They're not out in the plywood portion, but they're down on the green, and they're painted in a green underneath. So it looks like vegetation. And so there's more of our wagon tracks. Here's the edge of the mountain. Here you can look back in here, and there are the whistle wires. So one of them's disconnected, one of them's pulled off the commutator, and that's exactly how this came. The only way to get the whistle out was to disconnect those. Underneath, they're soldered and stapled to the bottom of the board. And the whole thing, you can see there's like a red paint around it. They painted the whistle. So it's not green. It's actually got this oxide red color that's spray painted on it. And it also has a special custom billboard that I'll reveal at a later time. Here's a close-up of the mountains that we have. This is how they did the big peaks and everything. And that's it for now. According to the flyer, you use your own transformer and you just let her roll. So that's it for now. And I wish you happy building on your layouts. And stay tuned for part 2.